15 people right that very night that he felt would be willing to volunteer and step up to do something like this. He agreed to be a starting point for something like that. I'm sure that everybody in the chamber, everybody in business here knows somebody that they would recommend or at one time or another would be able to step forward. There is no cost to this part of the program. It would be all volunteers, and therefore there's no funding. And this could start as soon as people want it to start.
And what's the difference between the mentor buddy system and this objective?
I'm sorry, this is just part of that whole idea, Joe.
Oh, okay.
Okay, it's just part of the whole idea.
I thought it was two separate objectives.
No, but within that idea, then, when we have a new business or somebody that is about to come into town, we would try and use the buddy mentors as well as the executive director. Donna's doing all this work right now. This is to broaden out what her impact is, to spread around the impact of the Chamber of Commerce, the whole business atmosphere. And first thing that our group felt was necessary was to try and make that new business early warning system as effective as possible. Donna has all her feelers out now, but she still can't find out everything. She does her best job possible to make that as broad as possible so that she knows when people are coming in town. We want to develop information packets that Ed is talking about and other people are talking about here that will help let those people know what resources are here in town. We develop a welcoming approach for every major type of business, whether it's retail, industrial, service, or whatever. People that will be coming in, try to help a different welcoming approach for each one of them, and develop a plan to assign people to greet all these businesses as they come in, and set up this buddy-mentor relationship. This is where it starts. If we figure out what their needs are, assign the right person with them, then this will all go forward. If they feel good about being in the community, they have somebody to contact with their problems, and they can direct them, whether it's government, whether it's other parts of the professional organizations that they need to meet up with, somebody to get them started and get them going. And really, once that part of it's done, the follow-up procedure to make sure that the rest of the relationship works. Again, this would be done through the Chamber of Commerce. The materials, we figure, would be $10 to $20 for a packet to each person. There might be advertising, other ways of paying for this. That would be in that packet, and the labor would be volunteer again. So this part of the program has virtually little cost to it. Finally, to educate the people that are here and make sure that they're up on things, we want to promote continuing education, and the way we felt that this would work best is to create an education committee within the Chamber of Commerce. A small group, maybe it would be related to the school community as well. There are different ways of doing this, but people that were going to design the education programs and decide what the needs are, going to develop its own mission statement, come up with the periodical programs, work with the buddy mentors to get a feel for what is needed by the various business groups. Use those people. If they're out contacting the owner, they not only know their own needs, but they know what their neighbor needs as well. And they'll bring that information back. We can have a form of regular updates. But the main thing is to advertise the program. And this is to try and meet those needs that we can within the community. If they're not ones that we can put on the programs for, then direct people someplace else where they will find the programs. Make them aware of them. Basically, we're talking about volunteers here again, and so the source of funding on the actual planning of this is going to be minimal. Putting on the programs, hopefully that would be supported by fees or whatever, but if that doesn't work, then there are other alternatives, and as long as we're dealing with volunteers, we can possibly get people from the professional community. I'm thinking of things like that affect me, tax seminars, things like that, retirement planning that you might want to deal with, other things that are fairly simple. You've got people in the community that can put on programs like that to try and direct that if there's enough need for it. I don't know where he's addressed. This is what we dealt with. So, in a very quick capsule, that's what we came forward with. Open to any questions there? Comments? Does anybody care? Everybody's still awake up
Raise your hands.
there? My committee's back here at this table. Okay.
Good job. In the interest of time, we, out of the 6 task forces, that was just the 3rd report. I know this is probably unfair to the rest of them, but
A lot lighter than some of the rest of you did. We didn't have to worry about traffic lanes and parking. We were just concerned about whether we wanted to bring Disney World North in or whether we wanted to buy Auto World and have it shipped down, those kinds of things. So we really had an awful good time. We had a real rich diversity of personalities and points of view on our committee. I wouldn't say that we had, always put your papers by the fan of the overhead. That's I wouldn't say that we had some differences of opinion, but perhaps this capsulizes the flavor of some of our... All right, now who stole my script here? Where's that? Okay.
Put it back behind you.
There are a few of us left, Dottie and Dave. Would you stand up, those of you from the Image and Promotion Task Force, if you're still around, please? Back and stand up. Pat's going to share this responsibility with us. Certainly one of the things that we were impressed with in terms of the task at hand, no pun intended, was that as we got into the activity itself, it became pretty clear that there were a lot of fun things to talk about relative to image and promotion of a city, of a municipality, and most of us on the committee have lived in this area, are products of this area, and we have a sense of history and perspective that perhaps some others can't appreciate or don't care about or whatever it might be. But the fact that once we got past the reminiscing and some of the fun suggestions, we did get down to some pretty heavy-duty discussions relative to methods and methodologies. And what we discovered is it's not easy to talk about image. It's a lot harder than it might appear on the surface. This was our product, I guess you could say, certainly. The major goal was to package ideas which would enhance the business community, the community's natural features and amenities, to attract people to the city, and to create a positive, and I believe that should be identity awareness. And that's not easy to say. I'm going to deal briefly with the first 3, and Pat will pick up with the second 3. Objective 1. I was at a workshop all day today. I'm sorry. I've lost total control, and you're going to have to suffer through it. That's all there is to it. I guess we had, we had 3 groupings briefly to talk about. We really concentrated on cultural and architectural strategies under our objective of heightening the awareness to the general public, of the general public, to the location of Wayne. Some of us found it pretty incomprehensible that we no longer are recognized as being the end of the interurban line out of the center of Detroit. I probably don't even know what an interurban line was.
When did that stop?
When did that stop? I still have tokens at home. So. In any event, it is an awesome task. But you can see the groupings up there really fall into some reinforcements of some of what some of the other committees have said, visual and aesthetic changes, which certainly need to be reinforced and made. Some cultural and entertainment suggestions, strong theme there throughout our discussions all through the committee. And certainly we also want to spend money. We could see at no juncture throughout this entire process could we see it feasible for a participatory democracy to find time in its busy schedule, and plus a paid professional staff as it exists now in city government, to devote the kind of serious energy and attention that would be necessary to really implement a great many of these plans. So key to a whole lot of the suggestions that we have had from our committee would be certainly consideration of placement on the city staff of a paid professional in the area of image and community relations. promotion and a whole wide variety of things. That was an important thing. We had another strong theme too, and perhaps it's because Dave was so articulate throughout our meetings, but everyone seemed to recognize that there was an important link that gets neglected all too frequently between media and a community. It surfaces, of course, in crisis situations. It may surface in terms of special events, and we feel real comfortable with those kinds of relationships. But on an ongoing basis, in terms of actually having a mutually beneficial relationship with a wide variety of media, we need to devote some attention to that. And that certainly would address itself to the external publics more specifically, I would guess, than it would to. So what you've got is our shopping list up there of some really wonderful kinds of things. Going out in search of an event, looking for a home, much like the Renaissance Festival folks traveled from place to place looking for a home until someone said, hey, that isn't a bad idea, let's have them here. And they did. And they stayed. We could do that too. We certainly could do a lot more with the with a focus on the aesthetic and architectural, and that's been covered very heavily here. And we certainly could reinforce our role with media, and we certainly could think about seriously considering a paid professional on staff to begin the ball rolling. Obviously, most of the initiation pieces and most of the funding pieces have a remarkable similarity to them, so let's just skip all that stuff, okay? If you like it, you'll probably find some money for it. If you don't, it's out down the toilet anyway. Number 2, to present a more favorable impression of the City of Wayne's commercial district. Again, had some central themes to it. I think that number 6 on there was a recurring theme. Again, that we talked about when we talked about Objective 1, but it might have a more specific application when you think about the kinds of impressions people have about your community, whether they ignore you and close their eyes as they drive down Michigan Avenue, or whether they begin to have a sense of a good feeling, a good sense when they're traveling through and coming into and out of the community, that this might be a place to consider when and if they might need a place to live, or they might need a place to shop, and so on and so forth. And that is best done, obviously, by promotion, and certainly by doing some turnarounds in imagery, or in the image of the community. There was a lot of talk throughout the discussions on a number of issues about the relationship of Wayne to the expansion of the airport and to its proximity to Ann Arbor, its proximity to the center of Detroit. There, the arteries, certainly the major highway access roads to and from the City of Wayne are much better than they are in a lot of other communities, and so development of that kind of hub concept seemed to be an important issue, and precisely how we address that is certainly going to be a challenge, but it's a topic well worth developing, and especially with the expansion of the airport, there might be a whole other dimension of the importance of Wayne that's there that we can't quite see, or that we think about but we're not sure of, but it certainly ought to be thought about and developed. Revitalization is the key theme, of course, in terms of objective number 2. One of the things that we thought was important to do, and it probably would have a major impact on a wide variety of these implementation pieces in terms of the strategies, and that's that we need to do a lot more with developing databases, or utilizing the existing databases for bits of money here and bits of money there that might be applicable for a specific group of local businesses or municipality, or a subset of a municipality, or a project of a service club or an organization, a chamber of commerce. There's no shortage, certainly. The directory of grants and awards that sits on the shelf in my office is probably 4 inches thick. Most of those apply specifically to the educational setting, but there's a plethora of that kind of stuff. This is one of the activities that would be paramount for a staff person to begin to become immersed in from the city's point of view, and that's to begin to earmark specific sources of revenue that may have some definite strings attached to them, but that would be useful in putting a lot of the pieces that just say funding from city council, funding from DDA, et cetera, together, and then in turn turning those over to the grant writing folks in the departments and throughout the community. Okay, give you a flavor for that one anyway. The third one, the last one I'm going to talk about, and Pat will pick up the slack here. To establish an ongoing capacity to aggressively, and aggressively is certainly a key word here, promote the city of Wayne, which would reflect its unique features and attributes. This is a much more clinical approach, as you can tell from the Cricket clinical. No, it's there. A little more highly developed. This took place at a meeting I wasn't at, so they didn't have any fun that night, I can tell you that. That was certainly serious stuff, wasn't it? Obviously, great emphasis in number one on making sure that we have a readily accessible and obviously a multimedia collection of highly detailed resources and attributes of the city of Wayne in great depth and dimension and all kinds of things. The kinds of human resources that are here, certainly the demographics that you would expect to have access to, the educational opportunities, the quality of life issues, all these kinds of medical and so on and so forth. Much of that exists, a piece here and a piece there. And I think, and please correct me if I'm wrong, those of you who were there, that the intent was to make a much more cohesive package of all of the resources and to promote them as a single and total and complete package. Certainly, a key, the whole concept of cable came along and everybody started to talk about narrowcasting, and certainly that concept's extended into the advertising world and the world of commercial media. Everybody talks about, small market segments and all kinds of things that were unheard of virtually just a few years ago because of the economics and because of the great diversity of the folks who are spending money and who have money to spend. So I think that one of the things that became of particular interest, and we did talk about this at more than one meeting, and that was whether we're talking about the kinds of people who might want to come in and buy a home or might want to rent some office space or might want to do this or might be easily attracted to buy some Hummels or to buy a new Ford or whatever it might be, or a new Chevy. Certainly we need to know more than we know about them. We need to know who they are, we need to know where they are, and then we need to have a very good plan, and certainly the representatives from the merchants who are here this evening do a real good job of that, many of you do. It's a highly developed strategy in your business plan, but we certainly need to do a whole lot more with that whole concept, which again would be certainly the responsibility of the paid staff person to help promote design and follow through. An heavily underutilized aspect apparently surfaced again, and it's included in this particular objective, is that last piece, and that's that we take a lot for granted living in a community. And one of the things we take apparently for granted a great deal and underutilize, I don't want to say it's underdeveloped, I guess it's fair enough to say, but in any event, certainly the relationship or the potential for all kinds of partnerships and sales opportunities, and you name it, between and among the municipality and the large industrial commercial complexes that are within the boundaries of this municipality is an important resource. And that spills over into quality of life contributions for all kinds of things. So that certainly is a heavy agenda item for our objective number 3. Okay, I'll rush through this because Pat's going to rush through the last 3 also and then take questions at the end. Put that first one back up there.
And Gary didn't leave me any cute openings to use.
Here. Turn them upside down. They'll never know that song.
Okay. All right. You have to bear with me. I've never done this before, so if I have these backwards, you'll know why.
Some of my road pictures end up backwards, Pat.
We couldn't tell the difference.
Okay, objective number 4 was to create a more positive internal image and awareness of the community. I think we're underutilizing the things that the city and the chamber and everyone involved has already done. I don't think we pat ourselves on the back enough. We have to get a little more vocal. I think we all need to be our most positive ambassadors, even within the city. I had someone come into my shop last week and say, my gosh, there's nobody left here in Wayne. And I'm thinking, now wait a minute. Last year I had 6 empty stores on my block. This year I've got 1. So something's going right somewhere. And I think we need to pass that information on. We've got some beautification awards. I don't know how many people know that we give those awards out. Let's give ourselves a pat on the back. Okay. Objective 5, to create a greater awareness of existing stores and their merchandise and services. Within the Chamber of Commerce, we have an eye-opener coffee clutch at 8 o'clock in the morning once a month. But it does give us an opportunity to visit the various businesses. I didn't know some of the businesses here in Wayne, and I'm sure some of the rest of you are in the same boat. I didn't know Rowe Electric does residential as well as commercial lighting. So I think we have to introduce ourselves to each other and again introduce ourselves to the populace if we want to get this ball rolling again. Okay, enough of that one. Maybe we go fast when we don't know what we're doing. Okay, this should be objective number 6. Somebody got ambitious up there. To strategize and implement programs to more positively influence the perception. Why aren't you reading this, Gary?
It's horrible, that's why.
And the attitudes of residential realtors towards the city of Wayne. Unfortunately, I missed that meeting, but from notes here, we need to involve some of the realtors in the area to give us an idea of how we may present the city in a more favorable manner. I think that if we have some open forums between realtors and businesses and the city, we would come up with a lot of useful information. I think we need to use the newsletter to a greater extent, pass the newsletter out to the realtors, give a calendar of events so that they can see that we're not dead and dying, we're up and coming. And if you have any questions, ask Gary.
I know you're on a schedule, Mary, but can I say something to this group?
Sure.
That I felt was really important. I don't know if Connie Chicky's still here.
No.
She had to run off, but what you just hit on about residential realtors and this community, and I'm so glad that you guys covered it in your task force, because ever since the council had a meeting with the residential realtors about, how many months ago was that, Donna, Bob? When we were getting, 3-4 months ago, we were bouncing off of them the residential resale ordinance. And at that meeting, it was in this room, the subject came up about, and there was no time to touch on it. But several of the staff that was in the room, and I know some of the council people, it stuck in the back of several of our minds, is there was a couple of remarks made by Helen Tomlin, Connie Chicky, Dottie LeSueur, and others that they didn't go into in great detail, but we need to focus on, and maybe when we were talking about the vision committee or whatever, one of the things we need to do is there are some perceptions out there, and Helen and Connie and Dottie weren't condescending or weren't negative in their remarks to the council or the staff, but they just said that there are some biases out there in this world about Wayne, particularly south of Michigan Avenue, which we have just got to deal with as a community, not just the city, not just the chamber or whatever. We have just got to deal with some feelings that they get thrown back to them over and over and over again when Dottie or Connie or Helen or Chet Pagorni try and show a house on John Street or Richard Street or Haroon, the persons that aren't from Wayne, just say, I don't want to look at it. They won't, it's not they ride up and say, nope, that's not it. They don't even want to go and see something south of Michigan Avenue. And there are some nice homes south of Michigan Avenue in Wayne, and there are some not so nice homes on both sides of Michigan Avenue. And your comment about we've got to address that issue, whether we do it through this plan, through our strategic plan, or the city council and the chamber or others do it in some other fashion, but we need, as an outgrowth of this thing, to sit down with Helen, and Connie, and Dottie, and Chet, and all those realtors that work Wayne and know Wayne, that can be frank and honest with us, and not sugarcoat things and say, well, they really don't like John Zeck, that's why they want to go south of Michigan, you know. But can really help us understand what is that? What is it out there that scares them? Is it the old Prince and the Pauper restaurant that they have to ride by to get to John Street? Should we just bulldoze that building, get it out of there? Or is it other things? It's probably 100 different things. But I didn't cover it in traffic and parking because that wasn't part of it. But I really appreciate it because I've talked to the mayor about it, talked to Councilman Dean about it. And I talked to before, because this is really important.
I think he's emotional about this issue, guys.
I got two. My time's up. Thank you.
Sit down. Sit down. You made your point.
John, that was a very good point.
Terry Bixler.
Business mix and economics. We had a lot of really good input at our meetings, like everybody else. And what I wanted to do before I got started was just take a second to introduce those members of our committee that are here. If you'd stand up so that everybody would know who you are. Start off with Goldie Warfield and Shirley Pauser, Viv Young, Tom O'Keefe, and Bill Copeland. All did a very good job. And I'm one of those poor guys that missed a meeting and got volunteered to do this job. I practiced over the last couple of days and couldn't figure out how to get the presentation down to less than an hour and still encompass everything that was covered at the meeting in any sort of meaningful fashion. So I know you all got your packages a couple days ahead of the meeting, and is there anybody here that didn't take the time to review it before they came? I'll see you after. So with that in mind, I think what I'll do is assume that everybody's already read the fine details, cover the major points, which we had basically 4 that we narrowed all of the information down to. And then if there are any questions, if you do have some questions after reviewing the material, I'll be glad to answer them with the help of the committee. But basically our overall goal is to create a homogeneous mix of commercial and residential development within the city of Wayne that meets the needs of the market. And basically what we were saying there is that we feel that the city of Wayne has a lot of unique aspects to it. And we need to identify what's going on not only within the city of Wayne, but around the city of Wayne. And then try to create a mix of commercial and residential development that will meet the needs of the market as we define it. The first objective was to identify groups of businesses which currently exist and those needed to support future growth. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. There's a number of ways of going about doing that. If you'd like to get into some detail on that, we can. Does anybody have any questions in the back? Yes? No? Okay, don't be afraid to ask a question. If you like, I can put the overhead up, but I was sitting in the back. It's hard to read the overhead anyway when it's up on the screen. If you just want to flip to your book, that's covered in detail on page 51. Okay, good. So just like we planned it. Number 2 was to create a marketing and targeted attraction program. And basically, what we wanted to do there was to create a priority list, more of a rifle as opposed to a shotgun approach, of businesses that we wanted to attract that would be identified through identifying groups of businesses which we wanted to bring into the community. And then create a targeted attraction program specifically designed to get those companies or those businesses to come into the area. Kind of a nice progression here as we go along. We all follow one another. Number 3 was to work with the Downtown Development Authority, which I serve on the DDA in the city of Plymouth, and I'm on the Planning Commission there. And one of the biggest attributes you have is your DDA and the source of funding that you have to do just about anything you want here. You've got a tremendous source of financing available, and some $5 million that you captured through the expansion of the Ford plant on Michigan Avenue. Through bond issues, you can do just about anything you want. So you really have an open slate from a financial point of view. But to work with the Downtown Development Authority and municipal agencies to create a pedestrian-friendly environment in the downtown area. As a sidelight to this, the City of Plymouth just approved a plan, a $5 million streetscape plan for downtown Plymouth, which was the result of 3.5 years of study and programs and hiring consultants to come in and do it. But if you came up with a streetscape plan along the same lines, you probably have the same sort of cost figures if you wanted to use that as an estimate to see what kind of money you'd be talking about to do significant rerouting of traffic, two-way streets to one-way, planners, lighting, and the whole works. But one of the main points that we came across and wanted to bring that out tonight was, I think it's very important for you to review your local ordinances, zoning, setbacks, building heights, green belts, to make sure that whatever plans you come up with will be consistent with the zoning that you have, and then the future development you do will be consistent, so that you have, to beat a dead horse, the consistency in your downtown, so you don't have an eclectic mix of businesses and business uses and appearances in the downtown area. One of the other points was we thought it would be very, very crucial to identify an anchor, and we use that term very broadly, not so much meaning like bringing a Jacobson's downtown, but an anchor in the term of a theme, maybe a large commercial user. Maybe an anchor could mean something like creating more residential housing downtown, but some sort of an anchor that you can build all of the rest of your development on and use as a core from which everything else can spring forward. And then the last point, which really ties into our overall goal, is to attract residential housing to the downtown and encourage more downtown living. This has some obvious benefits, but also would only be available if number 3 is very clearly developed. But by bringing more people downtown, I live downtown in the city of Plymouth, and so I can speak to the advantages we have in being able to support the merchants that are there because we live there and it's convenient for us to go down and shop. And if you tie back to those demographics that were brought out earlier, you have, according to the demographics, an older shopping group that doesn't live downtown, that is coming in for very short times with virtually no recreational spending going on at all. If you encourage more residential housing downtown, the consensus of our group was that you probably stimulate more spending, be able to support the businesses that are here more effectively, and probably encourage, again with the help of doing what's in number 3, encourage some developers to come into the downtown, take existing buildings and do some more creative type things with them, other than just looking at second stories for storage or office. Look at those as lofts and townhouses and some of these buildings that are currently 1-story next to a 2-story, adding on to them and creating some more density downtown. When you look at the map and the possibilities you have for adding new residential development, really the biggest opportunity because of zoning is downtown, if you do it within the city. And that creates more tax base and all of those positive things of downtown development. But overall, I think the feeling of the group was that you've got a unique attraction here, that you've got a central business district, which many communities are trying to create, from scratch. They don't have it. They're trying to make it look like it's been there for a long time. You've already got that, and I think if you work along with the businesses and the DDA, you've got plenty of funds to take that and make it into something very unique and accentuate it. But also the importance of adding to that not only the commercial but the residential. So those were the 2 overriding things: the commercial development using DDA funds and a consistent approach to that development, and also bringing in a stronger residential presence downtown. If there aren't any other questions.
What was your group's feeling about which businesses to target?
We didn't try to come up with answers
Okay.
for that. I mean, that would take...
Or, what I'm leading to, of course, is the $90 million question. Were you guys promoting a target list of retail businesses? Or were you talking about a list of restaurants, a list of offices? What were you talking about?
I think mainly we were talking about if the people live downtown, what would they need to shop at and maybe walk in distance? What
Okay,
you would need, like a drugstore, a
Okay.
dollar store.
I got you.
The
Thank you.
necessities and walking distance.
The real beauty of this particular group was not only that they started out with 5 objectives and they moved into 10 objectives and they found out that they could, in detail, deal with only 4, but they also saw it from a variety of different factors, and that is, the anchor may be entertainment, the anchor may be recreation, the anchor may be residential, the anchor may be a particular kind of attraction, and or many attractions, and that the anchor of the downtown wing is activity. So when they were looking at businesses, they weren't necessarily kicking into retail because we're talking about generation of people as well as meeting their needs and that to support that future growth. We didn't get into, or excuse me, the task force didn't get into specifics of, by the way, we need a shoe store at this time. However, the implementation of Objective 1 will address that.
Okay.
I think what we need to also multi-zoning project, like those vacant parking, instead of being used for commercial only, be used for commercial and residential.
Yeah, there are some things we talked about as far as specific types of zoning. I think Tom brought it out, was like a historic district for a designated downtown area where you can really get in and control not only the zoning but the architectural aspects and signage, as an example.
As an outsider, I only have one opposing thing that I keep hearing that word used over and over again is, it should be just, this should be a city project, and I keep hearing downtown. There's not really a downtown wing. It's a mishmash of a town, and I think that we need to bring it as a city and get rid of that downtown image, because that offends the south and the north and maybe even the east and west a little bit.
I think
know
that's
that's kind of,
semantics. I think the
I understand that.
City of Wayne, downtown Wayne.
Yeah.
You have a central.
But I've
business
seen
core.
that, I've heard that from before as a business person, I've seen that, so.
Sure, good point.
When you're talking residential housing in the downtown, did you visualize something in particular? Are you talking about using the existing stock that's there and just bringing people to it? Are you talking about building new? Are you talking about two-story townhouses? Are you talking high-rises? What did your committee talk about?
Yes.
Yes?
Okay, thank you.
All the above.
What's your target market for that?
We were just really doing brainstorming, and I think that narrow focus is going to be the subject of doing some marketing studies and feasibility. But I think all of those are possibilities, based on the input we got from people in our committee and the type of land and buildings that are available. You do have a lot of different opportunities within the city. Any other questions?
The task force that I was on was the organization task force. Jean Darnell and I will share this particular presentation. Those that served on the organization task force were Sharon Arthur, Cindy Spur, Connie Chicky, Debbie Manns, Bill Garrett, Pam Wasco Holmes, Jean Darnell, Jack Demmer, and Lorraine Otis. Our primary goal was to coordinate a revitalization plan for the commercial district in the city of Wayne. And I believe that with that goal, what we are looking at is to make sure that all of the hard work that has gone into this very extensive study does not, quote unquote, sit on the shelf. It is going to be a plan that is worked on and continually worked on until these goals are met. Our first objective was to seek the cooperation of community organizations and obtain their buy-in of the revitalization plan. In other words, we're looking for people who are active in the community, and those are generally the people that are in the different organizations, and seek their involvement in this particular commercial revitalization plan. Look to them to involve their friends and their neighbors and explain the plan to them. Number 2 was to develop a system to monitor progress or lack of progress during the goal attainment process. We must be able to determine the rate of progress or the lack of it. We must choose one, what we decided to do was that we would choose one person to represent each task force to give the steering committee progress reports. So in other words, there would be someone from traffic and parking that would be reporting to the steering committee, one person from business mix, etc. These representatives would be charged to report to the steering committee at each meeting, and the steering committee meetings would be open to the public and/or media representatives. Our third objective was to create community awareness of the process. Now, in that particular area, we got into image and promotion a fair amount. As the objective on page 59 reads, to create community awareness of the process or toot our own horn. This includes both the community, surrounding communities, and name recognition in the state and surrounding states. I think that we have to realize that this editorial comment of my own, I think we have to realize that really we're a pretty neat little community. We have some faults, but I don't know any community that doesn't. And I think that very often we're far harder on ourselves than we really need to be or should be. Sometimes there's a bit of an inferiority complex there when we speak of Wayne in regards to other communities. And I don't think that that's really the way it should be. In this third objective, some of the strategies were to provide regular updates in the local newspapers, perhaps Sharon Popek's Great to Live in Wayne column, utilize Wayne Cable highlighting a business of the month, promote pride in the city of Wayne, utilize the City of Wayne movie theater, particularly the Marquee. Also, we could promote coming attractions on the screen. We'd have our own commercials, so to speak. Develop a video or slide type presentation for presentation for local clubs and church functions. Perhaps develop a piece for the Michigan Department of Tourism. Interestingly, number 6 on page 59 ties in with what John was saying about the real estate. Connie Chicky was the one who definitely mentioned this, that we should promote that we have affordable real estate, and we definitely do. Perhaps we should have a slogan or logo to identify with revitalization. Consider hiring a public relations promoter or using an intern for this. Now, in connection with this objective number 3, and I should have brought the piece of paper up with me, I guess. I believe you have a copy also, Pat. Bill Demmer is already involved in this create community awareness. And if you haven't received this letter from him, if you're in business, I'd like to read it to you. As a fellow business owner in the city of Wayne, I am writing to express the concern that I have with the image problem we face in the city. How do you get to the city of Wayne? This is one of the most common questions we hear at Jack Demmer Ford. I believe that we can no longer ignore this problem. It's time for each and every business owner to promote the fact that his business is in the city of Wayne. You can do this by using statements such as, we are minutes away from Metro Airport, just east of I-275, just west of Dearborn, etc. If we are to spark enthusiasm and put the city of Wayne on the map, we need the help of each and every business owner. We need to mention the city in all of our advertising. We are a city of specialties, from automobile manufacturing to hardware, jewelry, specialty products, transportation service, and numerous others. It's also important to get signage to direct people from outlying communities to our city. We need more signage on I-275, on Wayne Road north into Westland and south into Romulus and Dearborn and Ypsilanti. These signs must be clearly readable. Many things need to be done to promote the city of Wayne. Let's all take part in the first step to help the businesses in our community. Please take the time to write to our state reps and express this important point. People have to know how to get to a community before they can appreciate its value. And then yes, if anyone has any more ideas, questions, comments, or concerns, to please contact you. This is a positive step in creating community awareness, both inside and outside of our community. Jean, will you please take the last thing?
I'm going to cover the last 3 and then we're done. And I talk real fast. Terry can attest to that. All right, going to number 4, 4 to develop a time frame for accomplishing each of the task force objectives. Everything has to have timelines. Now, we did want to keep this an ongoing process, not when just the initial revitalization is accomplished, but to keep it almost perpetuated. So in that, we had a strategic plan of compiling the final reports from all of the task forces, reviewing the objective timelines, and then having the steering committee develop timelines along with the DNA and the city. Our targeted outcomes on this was to keep everyone on target and, as I said before, to make and keep revitalization as an ongoing process. Going to number 5, to develop an organizational change to move the project from inertia to momentum. And that involved the setting beginning and ending guidepost and identifying the person or persons responsible at each phase of the implementation. We were also concerned that that it include a monitoring, an evaluation, and a problem-solving process in the assigned responsibilities. And then to include in this process, in this setting up, all the parties involved in the chain, should be the task force members, city management, and the commercial community. We did recommend that the steering committee organize an administrative committee to oversee all of this. And our targeted outcomes to get the projects going, to define roles and responsibilities, to have that evaluation process, and to get the involvement, the buy-in, and get everybody involved and get them to buy into this, and to have definitely an administrative chain of command. And down to the last one. To obtain the input, acceptance, and cooperation of the city as a partner in this revitalization initiative. And we wanted to do a presentation to the City Council of the Steering Committee's Task Force recommendation. Part of that is going on tonight. A request to City Council to review the recommendations, schedule a meeting to discuss the recommendations, and all of these are spelled out along with others in your booklets. And what we hope to accomplish here was to get the city to be a partner, to keep the city informed, to get city cooperation and support, and to keep the public informed. Any questions?
Two things I'd like to say. The first is a question, and I don't necessarily want you to answer it, and that is, when we went over at the community center or when we met in the museum, did you ever think that you would get this far? And the second thing is, we are unbelievably proud of you people.
I guess all that's left to do is I'll just do my Tracy Ullman routine. Go home! Go home! It's like,
1 second, I'd like to thank John and Zach for inviting me, and I think you people are really, really doing a great job as an outsider. I hope you keep up the good work.
go home!
Everybody's going to go home, huh? It's Tracy on the